Tito assistant. Tito assistant.
12 seconds. That's how far into the recording you have to go before the argument starts. 12 seconds of hold music, a bilge pump failing, a teenager's voice pitching upward, and underneath all of it, something else. A second voice, buried in the background of somebody else's emergency. Millions of people have now heard it. Thousands of them will tell you, without hesitation, exactly what it says. They'll tell you they can hear a question. They'll tell you they can hear a name. And this week, a digital forensics expert sat down with that same file. He didn't argue about the words. He didn't debate the syllables. He went somewhere nobody else had bothered to look. He looked at the file itself. What he found had nothing to do with what the voice said, and everything to do with which recording you're actually listening to. We'll get there. But before we do, you need to understand why this recording matters so much right now. Because it didn't arrive into a vacuum. It arrived into a case where a district attorney has locked an autopsy report in a drawer since the 7th of July, where a sitting judge is facing a petition to remove her from the bench, where a family commissioned their own pathologist and got back a single word, undetermined, and where the federal government has now confirmed it's involved. 3 things are going to happen in the next few minutes. You're going to find out why the state's autopsy is being held. You're going to find out what the petition against Judge Ashlee Cole actually alleges, which is not what most people think it alleges. And you're going to find out what happened when that audio file met a forensics workstation. Let's start where the confusion starts.
We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the word coming up, sir? All right, of course. How far is the word coming up, sir? All right, of course. How far is the word coming up, sir? All right, of course. How far is the word coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles? Hello? 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 Hello?
Hey.
Yes, how far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
All right, well, let's get you going. Membership number or phone number listed on the account, sir?
I don't know the phone number. It's either.
You already know the shape of this, so let's not retell it. Let's tighten it. Horn Island sits off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. It is federal land, part of a national seashore, and the thing that matters most about it, the thing that shapes every single decision anyone made on the 4th of July, is what isn't there. No shelters, no facilities, no communications. That's not commentary. That's the physical description of the place. There is nowhere to go. There is no way to call anyone. If you are on that island and something goes wrong, you are dependent entirely on the boat that brought you and the people standing next to you. On the 4th of July, it was packed. Warren Hudson has described boats stretching for miles around the island. Thousands of people. His words, everyone just got on the water, and then eventually there's their group, and then there's 50 other people around them, and then it grew and grew as the day went on. Everybody drinking. A big party, basically. Hold that image because it does 2 contradictory things at once. It makes the case harder. Thousands of potential witnesses, hundreds of boats, phones everywhere, video everywhere. That is why the Jackson County Sheriff's Department has spent weeks publicly asking anyone who was on that island to send in photos, video, and first-hand accounts. And it makes the case stranger. Because in a crowd of thousands, An 18-year-old wide receiver from Southwest Mississippi Community College became separated from everyone who knew him, and nobody, in 3.5 weeks of national attention, has produced a single frame of video showing how. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18, from Ocean Springs, a student athlete. He traveled out to the island by boat on the 4th of July with friends. The last time anyone has publicly placed him is somewhere around 3 in the afternoon. According to what Judge Ashlee Cole wrote publicly, her son Warren spoke with Wells around 3 o'clock, and Wells indicated he would get a boat home with another group of friends. Warren Hudson himself has said something slightly different in his own interviews, that he did not travel out on the same boat as Nolan, that he had a couple of conversations with him on the island, and that Nolan appeared completely fine. Those two accounts aren't contradictory, but notice how much weight is now resting on a conversation with no recording, no witness list, and no timestamp. Then the boat started sinking. Around 4 in the afternoon, a teenager on a boat leaving Horn Island called Sea Tow, a private towing company, not 911, a commercial marine assistance service. That distinction matters more than people realize, and we'll come back to it. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources released that recording. On it, over hold music and a great deal of background noise, a young man tells the dispatcher they're at the west tip of Horn and their bilge pump has stopped working. A bilge pump is the pump that removes water from the bottom of a boat's hull. When it fails on a boat that is taking on water, the boat has a countdown. Not a crisis in the abstract, a literal, measurable countdown. That is the emergency Warren Hudson has described. In his words, obviously, we were in an emergency. The boat, they were trying to save the boat. It's not like they didn't ask Nolan or they just left Nolan. Nolan decided to stay on the island with the girl that he was with. And, he added, the girl is a witness to that too. Hudson has also described a member of the group panicking and urging Wells to board before the boat was towed. As reported by the New York Post, that person was allegedly yelling at Nolan to get on the boat. Tresiston Shepard, another friend who was there, has given a broadly similar account. He's since said publicly that he's waiting for the investigation to run its course before drawing conclusions. The Wells family does not accept the premise. At a press conference on the 10th of July in New York, Nolan's parents, Christine and Elmore Wansley, said plainly that they do not believe Nolan would have voluntarily separated from his group. His father put it in the language that has defined this entire case for them. We want to know what happened to our son, because the things that you're telling us, that's not the character of our son. We know our son. And the family has separately questioned Shepard's account, including his characterization of how close he was to Nolan. So here is the fork the entire case sits on. Either Nolan Wells chose to stay behind during a genuine marine emergency and something happened to him afterward, or he didn't choose. Everything else is downstream of that. He was reported missing by his mother shortly after midnight. Warren Hudson has said something about that night that is either completely ordinary or deeply strange, depending entirely on what you already believe. He said that when the search started, he initially thought people were overreacting, that he assumed Nolan had passed out on somebody's couch. He also says he was the one who called the Wells family to tell them Nolan was missing. Both of those things can be true. An 18-year-old at the end of a long day of drinking, assuming his friend crashed somewhere, that is not suspicious behavior. It's the most common assumption in the world. But it is also, undeniably, a delay. And in a water case, delay is measured in currents. Local residents noted early on that the currents around the island have shallow points that make it difficult to regain control while swimming. The search ran through the 5th. On the morning of the 6th of July, a National Park Service agent found Nolan Wells's body face down in the water off the shoreline of Horn Island. Now we arrive at the moment this case changed from a tragedy into a national story. On the day the body was found, the Jackson County Sheriff's Department stated that no foul play was suspected. Read that again and consider the timing. Same day. Now, there is a legitimate professional explanation for it, and you deserve to hear it before you hear the criticism. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lynn told CNN there were no immediate, obvious signs of foul play or trauma on the body. But, and this is the part that almost never gets quoted, Lind also said that because of the uncertain circumstances, his office asked for a full autopsy at the state medical examiner's office, specifically so they could determine whether there was any foul play or trauma. So the coroner's actual position was never, "Nothing happened here." It was closer to, "Nothing is visible here, and we want a specialist to look harder." But that's not the sentence that went out. The sentence that went out was "No foul play suspected." And it went out about an 18-year-old black teenager who had been the only black person in a group of white friends on an island off the coast of Mississippi on the 4th of July. You do not have to reach a single conclusion about what happened to Nolan Wells to understand why that sentence detonated. The history is not subtle, and it is not distant. National coverage has openly acknowledged that Mississippi's fraught racial past looms over this case. Within 24 hours, the family had retained Ben Crump. What followed was one of the fastest escalations in a local death investigation in recent memory. Ben Crump, Reverend Al Sharpton, who gave the eulogy at the funeral, a press conference at National Action Network headquarters in New York on the 10th of July. Tyler Perry, who paid for the funeral, Terrell Owens. A reward was announced, and here's a small thing worth flagging, because it tells you how fast this story has been moving and how loosely it's been reported. Some outlets put the reward at $100,000, with half covered by Tyler Perry. Others report $125,000, involving Sharpton, Perry, and Owens. The discrepancy is minor, but when a detail that simple is being reported two different ways by major outlets, you should immediately recalibrate how much confidence to place in the complicated details. That principle is going to matter enormously in about 4 minutes. A GoFundMe for the family surpassed $230,000. And the case acquired something local investigations almost never acquire: an audience, watching in real time, screenshotting, time-stamping, building theories, which brings us to the judge. Ashlee Cole is a Chancery Judge for Mississippi's 16th Chancery Court District, covering George, Greene, and Jackson counties. She was elected to the bench in 2022 after previously losing a runoff to the same incumbent in 2018. Before the bench, she practiced family law in Hurley. She is Warren Hudson's mother, or his stepmother. And I want to be honest with you about this, because a lot of channels have picked one and run with it. Different outlets have reported it differently. Some describe her as his mother. Early coverage described her as his alleged stepmother. Social media has circulated a different woman's name as his biological mother. That discrepancy has never been cleanly resolved in any coverage I could verify, and I am not going to resolve it for you by guessing. What is not in dispute is that a sitting judge in the county where this death occurred is the parent of one of the last people to speak with Nolan Wells. On the 7th of July, she posted publicly on Facebook. She wrote that her family, along with the community, grieves the loss of Nolan Wells, that her thoughts and prayers were with Nolan's family, that her son Warren loved Nolan dearly. Then she did something a judge is generally trained never to do. She gave a timeline. She stated that neither she nor her husband was at Horn Island on the 4th of July. She stated that no member of her family was impeding the investigation. She stated that her son had cooperated fully with police. She noted that she had graduated from the same high school as Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, and that they came from the same community. And she addressed her own position directly. Her words, "Yes, I am a judge." She said she also values transparency. She apologized if anyone was offended that she had deleted her social media and said there were no nefarious motivations in it. She said social media has a lot of positives, but a whole lot of negatives, and that we live in a world of clickbaiting. Sad, but true. She had, in fact, temporarily deactivated her Facebook account. Now, if you are a parent whose child is being accused on the internet of involvement in a death, everything in that post is human. Every single line of it is what a mother does. But she is not only a mother, And that is the entire argument of the petition. There is now a change.org petition titled, and I'm reading the title exactly, Nolan Wells Case, Remove Judge Ashlee Cole for Violating Mississippi Judicial Ethics. At the point I verified it, it carried roughly 1,120 signatures. And here is where I need you to listen carefully, because this is the single most misreported element of this entire case. And if you take one thing away from this video, make it this. The petition does not accuse Ashlee Cole of a crime. It does not accuse her of interfering with evidence. It does not accuse her of covering anything up. It does not accuse her son of anything at all. What it argues is narrower and, frankly, more serious in a professional sense. It argues that Mississippi judges are entrusted with upholding the law in a manner that preserves public confidence in the courts. That this confidence is called into question when a sitting judge publicly comments on an active death investigation involving her own son while identifying herself as a judge. It notes that in those statements, she identified herself as a judge, defended her son's actions, discussed the investigation, and provided factual assertions about what occurred, and that those statements were then amplified by national media, reaching a far broader audience. And then the petition does something that almost no viral petition does. It concedes the limit of its own authority. It states directly that whether those statements violated the Mississippi Code of Judicial Conduct is a question for the Mississippi Commission on Judicial Performance. It asks for an independent investigation, and it asks for removal only if the evidence warrants it. If this is the kind of breakdown you want more of, the version where somebody actually reads the document instead of the headline about the document, please subscribe to this channel. It genuinely helps.
I think it's... Try that.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like, guaranteed.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like, guaranteed.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like, guaranteed.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like, guaranteed. I don't
All
have
right.
the tag on
Unless you
here.
have a
It got ripped
membership
off.
number or anything, it's okay. I'll get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2...
All right. And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How
on
many?
board.
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
No, we do not need that.
All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Do you have your current GPS coordinates?
Let me go look.
There's a second half to the judge's story, and skipping it would make this video dishonest. Ashlee Cole has said her family is receiving death threats, and that is not merely a claim from an interested party. It is corroborated from an unexpected direction by the federal government. Warren Hudson, 18 years old, did not attend Nolan Wells' funeral. He has publicly cited the threats as part of the reason. He has also spoken about what the last 3 weeks have been like. Talking to the New York Post, he said it's a sick world we're living in, that it's terrible, that Nolan was his best friend, that there are no facts out, just a lot of rumors, that's just how the internet is today, and it's horrible. He gave his first extended public interview to the commentator Brandon Tatum. In it, he described meeting Nolan in 8th grade when the two of them would eat together every week. He described their friend group as very tight-knit. He acknowledged, unprompted, that he had never gotten to know Nolan's parents, though he maintained it didn't change their friendship, that they were still just as close. That interview has been criticized, and one criticism is fair on its face. In the portion released publicly, Hudson did not directly address how Nolan became separated from the group. He focused on the lead up to the trip and on the friendship. Now, that might be evasion. It might also be exactly what a lawyer would tell an 18-year-old witness in an active investigation to do. Here's the uncomfortable truth that sits underneath all of this. Everyone in this story is under enormous pressure, and almost nobody in it has been accused of anything by anyone with the authority to accuse. Warren Hudson has not been named a suspect. Treseston Shepard has not been named a suspect. Judge Cole has not been charged with anything, and a family has lost a child and been handed a word instead of an answer. Both of those things are true at the same time. Any account of this case that only holds one of them is selling you something. Let's deal with the medicine, because this is where the case is. Genuinely, technically unresolved. Not rhetorically unresolved. Actually unresolved. There are two autopsy investigations. The official one was performed by the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office on the 7th of July. That is the one with legal weight. That is the one a grand jury will see. The second was commissioned privately by the family, performed by Dr. Roger Mitchell on the 10th of July. Mitchell is a board-certified forensic pathologist, president of the National Medical Association, and the former chief medical examiner of the District of Columbia. He is not a fringe hire. He is one of the most credentialed second opinion pathologists in the country. His preliminary findings were announced on the 22nd of July at the 117th NAACP National Convention in Chicago by Ben Crump. Mitchell himself did not attend. The finding was this: cause and manner of death, undetermined, pending further investigation. And Crump, reading directly from the report, delivered the line that has traveled further than any other in this case: that this pathologist cannot rule out if any intervening non-accidental factors contributed to or caused the death of Nolan Wells. Read that sentence slowly, because it is being used dishonestly by people on both sides. Cannot rule out is not found evidence of. It is a pathologist stating the boundary of what his examination could establish. It is a statement about the limits of the evidence available to him, not a statement about what happened on that island. Crump's own summary was more careful than most of the coverage of it. His words: "We have more questions than answers at this time." Mitchell's report documented one finding that has driven weeks of speculation: red discoloration in the deep soft tissue at the back of Nolan's head. Crump described it at roughly 12 inches by 8 inches. That is a real finding. Nobody disputes it exists. What it means is completely unestablished. Bodies recovered from water after 2 days present a great many things, and distinguishing injury from post-mortem change is precisely the kind of question a full report with photographs and microscopy exists to answer. Mitchell wrote that he did not receive Nolan's internal neck structures, including the trachea. The state's pathologist had retained them. Without them, Mitchell could not examine critical neck structures, and therefore could not rule a neck injury in or out as a contributing factor. Enormous numbers of videos have presented that as evidence of a cover-up. Body parts missing, evidence withheld. Here is what Dr. Mitchell, the family's own pathologist, the one with every professional incentive to raise an alarm, actually said about it. He said he did not know why the initial pathologist kept the neck structures. And he added that it is not uncommon to keep those body parts for additional testing if there are concerns of fracture or neck compression. Not uncommon, his words, about the state's conduct, and follow that reasoning to the end, because it inverts the entire conspiracy reading. If the state retained the neck structures because of concerns about compression or fracture, that means the state pathologist took the possibility of a neck injury seriously enough to preserve the tissue for specialist testing. That is not the behavior of an office trying to make a case disappear. Mitchell listed his other limitations plainly. He conducted his examination after the state's. The body had undergone significant decomposition by the time it reached Washington. Many internal organs were affected, and critically, the original toxicology results had not been received at the time of his report. Toxicology is the missing floor under this entire building. When a body is found in water, the central question is whether drugs, alcohol, or medication played a role in the events beforehand. Whether something incapacitated him, and if something did, the question investigators would then face is whether it was taken voluntarily. Nobody outside the investigation knows the answer. Nobody. Not Crump, not the friends, not me, and not any channel telling you otherwise. Which brings us to the decision that has generated more anger than any other. On the 23rd of July, the Office of District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath confirmed that the state autopsy report will be withheld from the public until a grand jury can review it. The report is complete, and it is not being released. McElrath released a video statement explaining it. Her position is that this is not special treatment. Her words, every death in the county, except those of natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, is presented to your grand jury. She added that many people don't know that her office has handled death investigations this way her entire career. She acknowledged the public's hunger for answers, and she drew a line. The pressure for answers, she said, does not change what the work requires. These rules exist to search for the truth, not prevent it. They are not taking time for time's sake. They are taking time for the work this investigation demands. Now, is that a legitimate explanation or a convenient one? Both readings are available, and I'm going to give you the honest version rather than the satisfying one. The legitimate reading is strong. Grand jury secrecy is real and it is standard. Releasing a full autopsy report mid-investigation contaminates the witness pool. Every remaining person who might come forward now knows exactly what investigators found and can shape their account around it. In a case where the sheriff has interviewed more than 60 witnesses and is still soliciting more, that is not a small concern. It's the whole concern. The skeptical reading is also not stupid. The sheriff's department has gone stretches of more than a week without any public statement. The initial no foul play announcement was made same day and has never been formally retracted or explained. And the office asking for patience is the same jurisdiction where a sitting judge is a parent of a witness. Ben Crump's position threads both. He has confirmed the prosecutor agreed to present the results of the investigation to a grand jury once it's completed. And he has said he's working alongside the local prosecutor to inspect Nolan's phone, which is cooperation, not obstruction. He's also called for Dr. Mitchell to be included when the grand jury hears the death investigation. That last request is the one to watch. It is unusual, it is specific, and it is the kind of thing that gets granted or denied on the record. Everything you've just heard is the pressure system that the audio dropped into on the 27th of July. TMZ took the recording released by the Department of Marine Resources and published an enhanced version, cleaner, louder in the background, and it went everywhere. Here is precisely what the outlet reported people believe they can hear, and I'm going to be exact, because exactness is the entire point of this section. At around 12 seconds in, someone in the background seemingly asking, "Is he dead?" Elsewhere, the name Nolan, followed by a clearly audible, "Oh my God!" Other passages read by listeners as, "Check his chest," and "Wake up." And one thing that is not disputed as being on the recording at all, the caller audibly yelling an expletive at someone to shut up. TMZ separately reported that evidence apparently shows Nolan Wells was still on Horn Island when his friend's boat left. And I want to give the outlet its due here, because it did something the aggregators mostly didn't. TMZ itself stated that none of those interpretations have been confirmed, and that the muffled conversation leaves plenty of room for people to hear different things. That caveat was in the original reporting. It was stripped out of roughly 90% of what followed. Within a day, the social media reading had hardened into certainty. Comments demanding arrests based on the audio alone. Headlines phrased as though a conversation had been transcribed rather than guessed at. And underneath all of it, an assumption nobody stated but everybody made. That somewhere, somehow, an authority had confirmed whose voices these were. Then a digital forensics expert named Robert Freed actually examined it. And this is the part of the story that almost nobody has covered, which is remarkable, because it is by a wide margin the most important development of the week. Freed compared the enhanced version to the original. He could not corroborate TMZ's claims of hearing phrases like, "Is he dead?" But he didn't stop at listening. He looked at the file's properties, and what he found is this. The version circulating runs 20 seconds longer than the original. And it carries a different digital fingerprint, 20 seconds longer. A digital fingerprint is essentially a mathematical signature of a file's contents. Change the contents at all and the signature changes. So fried is describing two files that are not the same file, one of which has additional duration, the original does not. Now, there is an innocent explanation available, and Fried is careful about it. He notes that what the Department of Marine Resources released was heavily redacted. His words, there are account numbers that were shared, there were phone numbers, all that stuff is different than the original. So redaction alone could account for length and fingerprint differences. That is a genuine possibility, and he does not dismiss it. But that is exactly why his conclusion is what it is. He wants to see the original, and he wants to look at the metadata of the original. Because until somebody does that, nobody, not TMZ, not the sleuths, not you, not me, knows whether the words people are arguing about exist in the source recording, or whether they're an artifact of whatever happened between the source file and the version that went viral. And then Fried said, the thing that should genuinely unsettle everyone who has been listening to that clip on a loop for 2 days. He explained that even if those words aren't in the clips at all, it's easy for people to start perceiving them in the recordings after hearing the claims about them. He said his own mind went there first. His words, when he first heard about some of the words that were apparently heard, his mind was automatically going to that as well. So his perception was, okay, let me hear what everybody's talking about, and let's go down to the specifics of it from a forensic analysis perspective. That is a professional admitting that the suggestion worked on him too, and then describing the only defense against it. Stop listening. Start measuring. There's a name for what he's describing. Once you are told what a muffled sound says, you will hear it saying that, reliably, every time. Your brain fills the gap with the sentence it was handed. It is one of the most robust effects in perception, and it is the single greatest enemy of every internet audio investigation ever conducted. Which is why forensic audio enhancement, done properly, is not about making things louder. It's a documented, replicable filtering process where no data can be created, no judgment-based edits or deletions can occur, and changes in pitch or speed can render a recording inadmissible entirely. Not, we cleaned it up. Every step documented, nothing added, ever. The claim that has been circulating, that federal authorities have identified the voice in that recording, has no basis in any reporting I could find. None. Here is what the FBI's involvement in this case actually consists of, on the record. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter confirmed that the FBI is helping examine digital evidence collected so far, and he said explicitly that this involvement is not out of the ordinary, because Horn Island is on federal land, and his office frequently works with the FBI, not a dramatic federal takeover, jurisdictional routine. And the second piece is the one that recontextualizes everything you've heard in this video. The FBI confirmed to ABC News that the agency is working to address interstate threats that were received by individuals related to this matter. Threats against witnesses, against officials. That is the federal investigation people have been citing as proof that the audio has been decoded. It isn't about the audio at all. It's about what the audience did in response to it. Two things are simultaneously true, and I don't think either one cancels the other. A family is being stonewalled by a process they didn't design and can't see into. And the people that same public has decided are guilty are receiving threats serious enough that the federal government opened a file. Ledbetter's office has interviewed more than 60 witnesses, including all 3 friends who were on the boat with Wells. That is what an active investigation looks like from the outside. Slow, quiet, infuriating. Let's separate the live questions from the noise, because there are real ones, and they deserve better than they've been getting. The toxicology results, not released, the most probative single document in the case, and nobody outside the investigation has seen it. Nolan's phone. His mother stated publicly that his phone was found on the boat his friends had been on earlier that day. Crump is now working alongside the prosecutor to inspect it. What is on it, and what is not on it, is a live question. The photographs. TMZ has reported that Christine Wansley accepted an offer from the United Cajun Navy to view images they obtained of her son's body when it was found on the beach at Horn Island. A mother is about to look at photographs the public will almost certainly never see. And the last witness, the young woman Nolan was reportedly speaking with. News Nation, citing the Daily Mail, reports she has been identified as 19-year-old Katie McCormick. Her account has been described to Nolan's mother as a brief interaction, and a relative, Gracie McCormick, has disputed the claim that Wells intentionally stayed behind to keep talking with her. I'm going to say this once and clearly. She is a witness. She is not a suspect. She has not chosen to be a public figure. She has not made a public statement, and she is 19 years old. Everything after this sentence is what I know, and nothing after it is what I believe. No one has been charged in the death of Nolan Wells. Warren Hudson, Tristan Shepard, and Katie McCormick are witnesses, and no authority has named any of them a suspect. Judge Ashlee Cole faces a petition, not a proceeding, and the Mississippi Commission on Judicial Performance has announced no finding against her. The words people believe they hear on that recording have not been authenticated by anyone, and the only expert who has examined the file professionally could not corroborate them and has asked for the original. The state's autopsy is complete and sealed. The independent autopsy says undetermined. The toxicology is outstanding, and a grand jury has not yet convened, which means the honest answer to what happened to Nolan Wells today is that nobody watching this, including me, knows. That's an unsatisfying place to end. It's also the only truthful one, and I'd rather hand you an accurate uncertainty than a comfortable story. If that's worth something to you, subscribe to the channel. We follow this case as the documents land, not as the rumors do. And when the toxicology comes back, and when that grand jury finally sits, we'll be here to read the actual paperwork.
Any parent that would be in this situation, you would do anything to find out what happened to your child. And that is what we're here to do.
It is very important to note that this narrative, this suggestion that it was an accidental drowning, nothing to see here, is troubling, even if that's the case. There were 300 to 400 people out on Horns Island. You mean to tell me nobody saw anything? Nobody can tell us anything about what happened to one of the few black people that were out there on that island that day? It just doesn't add up. The fact that they're saying Nolan said that he would stay behind, but yet an 18-year-old kid would not want his cell phone if he was going to stay behind. The fact that...
Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old. He was a son and a wide receiver and somebody's best friend since the 8th grade. He deserves an answer, not a theory.